Hello everyone, this is Whitney Will from Astrology, and I am back on Instagram for your midweek check-ins. So I do these every week on Wednesdays, and I just take a moment, check in with the current transits that we are going through, look at the week ahead and the weekend, and try and kind of help us just settle in to the sense that we are where we're supposed to be. Whatever we're going through, we will make it through it. We're all in our little vessels of time carrying us through. Now, I also started doing these posting these on YouTube while I was on my Instagram break. So I'm also recording for YouTube. And what I like about that is that I can share my screen, and so I can show charts. So if you're interested in seeing the charts that I'm going to talk about, you can head on over to my YouTube channel for that piece. And if I'm like looking in between screens, that's what's happening. So to start, right, where are we? Well, we are at the end of Venus retrograde. She is stationing still. Her, the day that the calendar decided her station was on Saturday. Where we are, I'm trying to see, yeah, she's still in the same degree, within the same degree that she's stationed at. So she's at about 11.5 degrees, and her exact station kind of arc minute was 11:05. So just inching forward. And so right, that sense of just inching forward sounds really pervasive. When I asked you all how you were, and thank you for everyone who responded, I think what I heard was kind of, right, some people that are still feeling overwhelmed, kind of in the thick of it, really in that Venusian pause. And then there's the other people that are ready for like, okay, now what? Now we did that, let's go. Right, and I think we kind of feel two sides of Capricorn in that space. The one that's like, we're gonna sit here, we're gonna try and deal with everything before we move on. And then, right, not forgetting that Capricorn is a cardinal sign, and it's about like, okay, let's go. What are the action items? Let's do it. So I think there's a little bit of that. We also have Mercury stationing direct tomorrow in Capricorn. So there's this sense of, I think Capricorn can be bigger than our individual lives in terms of, right, it's kind of how we wrestle with our place in the world, which is partially inherited. And I think Capricorn is the side of the establishment, kind of like ascribes and a kind of inherited place to us. And then when we're dealing with Capricornian stuff, we're dealing with the weight of that. It's making me think of that movie from the late 90s, early 2000s with Heath Ledger, A Knight's Tale, right? Which is it's a remake of Chaucer's original story, right? But this idea of how do we change our stars and the issues with what a big task that is. And so I think we're all kind of wrestling with this place of like, where do we find ourselves in life? Do we have a sense of where we're trying to go? What does that look like? What are we doing? So some big, heavy themes coming up. Venus is still in the shadow of her retrograde until the first week of March. Mercury is still in the shadow of their retrograde until February 23rd. So we have a few more weeks to kind of deal with these themes. So the week ahead, what we have is we have Mercury stationing direct at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So still has to move out, make a final conjunction with Pluto. That's not going to be until a week from Friday. So we're not worried about that, but it's close. So we're still in this kind of potency around communication. Then on Friday, we have these kind of two aspects perfecting that I think are really actually supportive for each other. And so I think that's really nice. We have the Sun's annual conjunction with Saturn, which is kind of this sobering moment of truth where we reconcile what we think we're doing, what we're trying to do with with the weight of our tasks and the weight of time and the weight of our finitude and our inherent limitations. And so it's this kind of this moment to, I think, really sit within those things and check in and make sure that we're pacing ourselves appropriately. Now, at the same time, we have Mars and Capricorn in a sextile with Jupiter and Pisces. And so we've got the tenacity, the discipline, the stamina of Mars and Capricorn in a sextile with the buoyancy and the hopefulness and the supportive qualities of Jupiter in Pisces. So I think, right, that kind of, it's taking the tasks seriously, but also having an optimistic attitude towards them. And so I think, right, having the combination of Sun, Saturn, and Mars, Jupiter, you get, I think the Mars, Jupiter has the protective measure of looking for the action items and having an optimistic feel towards some of the heavier aspects that we might experience with the Sun and Saturn. And then the Sun, Saturn has more of that sobering, don't get too ahead of yourself quality to make sure that the Mars, Jupiter is being practical. And then it's a quiet weekend. The moon is in Taurus, still in the waxing crescent phase. It's a weekend that will be really good for kind of, right, if we're having this moment of pacing yourself and checking in on Friday, then the weekend is kind of like, what do you need to do to support yourself, right, in a physical way? How is your body? Are you eating are you eating what you need to be eating, right? Connecting with the natural world that's now slowly coming to life. Okay, and then finally, the last aspect we have before next Wednesday is on Tuesday the 8th. We enter the first quarter moon, so we're going into the busy half of the month starting on the 8th, and then we also have Mars making a trine aspect with Uranus, which I think that Mars trine Uranus, if we're feeling overburdened by the Sun conjunct Saturn, that Mars trine Uranus is the second wind, the inspiration, the insight, right? We are empowered to take steps towards the Uranian spaces of self-liberation, of self-sufficiency, I think, with Uranus and Taurus. And so that's just a nice little energy boost, right, as the moon is also waxing into the bright half of the hemicycle. So that's what we have to look forward to. This is a weekend for, you know, I want to say comfort, but not quite. It's more of like a weekend to get yourself set up for the month ahead. I think it's a good weekend for kind of doing some like planning or action items, right? Now that we have Venus direct, now that we have Mercury direct, kind of where are we going? Where are we putting our energy to go? So that's your weekly check-in. Now I'm going to start doing this other piece where I talk about some of the questions that I've been asked and even specific questions. So, right, so I get lots of messages in my DMs and through my website with kind of astrology questions. And in the past, I usually respond and just answer those questions for free. And so I thought I would just add this kind of answer question to these check-ins. So feel free to DM me with questions about your chart, with questions about stuff, and be sure to include your birth info, and I will share your chart without your name or your birth info and do these little question and answer sessions. So this is going to be where, if you want to see the charts, go and check out the YouTube version of this. I was asked a question that feels really appropriate for the end of Venus retrograde, where a client that I see gave me the chart of a potential partner. There was some connection that they already had, right? So it's when we're looking at compatibility of people that we haven't even started dating yet, it's a little bit iffy, right? Because it's not necessarily happening. But this person had already had some connection and wants to know if this relationship has legs outside of the Venus retrograde. So what I look at is this is just a cursory, right? So normally if I were sitting down with a couple, I would sit down with them for 90 minutes and we would kind of parse this out. So what I'm going to be doing now is just kind of like the quick and dirty version of the stuff that immediately stands out to me. So the person who asked the question is a Sagittarius rising, Pisces sun, moon in Gemini. And then, right, because we're looking at relationships, we're looking at Venus, we want to look at Mercury for communication, we want to look at Saturn for commitment. So all of those kinds of pieces. When I look at the chart of the potential partner, I see that this partner has an Aquarius, has moon in Aquarius, has the sun in Virgo in the 8th, has Venus in Leo in the 7th. And so I see some things that immediately stand out to me. Okay, there is a little bit of a mutable emphasis in the potential partner's chart. So they have this kind of twinned mutability. It manifests differently, but they both have that. So there can be a little bit of wishy-washiness in terms of, right, wanting to do the right thing, right? Which can explain why this person even asked this question. They both have fire Venuses. And so, right, the relationship's burning hot and passionate, but potentially burning out quickly, though the partner has Venus in the 7th. And so they definitely value relationships. So I think that Sagittarius rising and Aquarius rising go really well together. There's a mutual love of freedom and of truth, not wanting to confine each other. And so I think that is some good compatibility, right? And they're going to have to be centered in that for the long haul. I think that them both having air moons, even though they're not in a trine degree based, those two air moons, I think work really well together. I think one of the strongest signs for compatibility is having moons in the same element, because, right, the moon over time is going to be that emotional security that we need. And having air moons is maybe not needing as much physical security or that sense of too much closeness, and really having a rapport built on the exchange of ideas that I think is really significant. I think that having suns in opposite signs is strong for compatibility because they really engage each other. And especially when we're dealing with mutable sun signs, I think that that mutability reacts really well to hard aspects because it's a kind of direct engagement. And usually, especially with Virgo and Pisces, there's not so much seeking to kind of dominate the other. Okay, finally, I look at the composite chart. And this is where I'm going to get at the nature of the relationship. Is this worth pursuing? It's a Capricorn rising chart, which means it's going to be serious, right? There's a potential for serious partnership here, but you're also going to have to engage with it really intentionally. So, right, I think they'll have to make a decision, like a decision together about how to engage in this partnership. And then it's ruled by Saturn, that's in Aquarius in the 2nd, right? So the resources that this partnership will have, I think, is the sense of idealism and fairness and the love of truth. I think something that speaks really strongly to this partnership is the Sun conjunct Venus in the middle of Gemini, which falls directly on my client's moon, right? And so really lighting up that moon and its desire for connection, and really kind of bringing nourishment in a way, because it's in the same sign, that moon can digest. And then also the moon of the relationship is on my client's Venus. So what I'm seeing though is that the composite chart looks more engaged with my client's chart than with the partner's chart, which might mean that my client would get more out of this relationship than the partner. Okay, that is what I have for you. Feel free to send questions. Thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to be back.